Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide, a reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know National Napping Day was created in 1999 by a Boston University professor to help people recover from lost sleep the day after daylight saving time? Learn why a short nap of just 10 to 20 minutes can improve alertness and productivity, while a 60-minute nap may cause you to feel groggy. Discover that naps were once used for medicinal and even religious purposes, while napping every day may be a sign that you are not getting enough sleep at night.
So I have a feeling that today's deep dive is going to be, well, incredibly popular, or at least very validating for a lot of you listening.
Oh, definitely.
Because today we are talking about something that honestly feels like a guilty pleasure for most of us. But according to this massive stack of research we have, it's actually a biological necessity.
Yeah, it really is. And the timing couldn't be better for this. We are looking at National Napping Day.
Right. Which, I have to be honest, sounds like a holiday I made up just to get out of doing chores.
Like a national leave me alone on the couch day.
Exactly. But it is a real thing.
It is a very real thing. And the date isn't just random either. National Napping Day always falls on the Monday, immediately following the return of daylight saving time.
Ah, the dreaded spring forward.
Yes.
The weekend where we voluntarily give ourselves jet lag without the benefit of actually traveling anywhere.
That is the perfect way to describe it. It's that moment where we all collectively lose an hour of sleep, our internal clocks get thrown into absolute chaos, and everyone is just walking around in a fog.
I feel that fog every single year.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a hangover, but without the party. So, the mission for today's Deep Dive is pretty clear. We want to move past this old school idea that napping is just laziness or something you do when you're bored.
Right, the slacker stereotype.
Exactly. Instead, we're looking at the art and science of the restorative nap.
And we have a really fascinating mix of sources today to help us do that. We've got medical advice on sleep duration, specifically diving into sleep architecture. We have historical context, and we even have some scriptural references that look at the spiritual side of rest.
So whether you are trying to be more productive or you just need a scientific excuse to close your eyes for 20 minutes today, stick around. Let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So let's start with the context here, because I was genuinely surprised to learn that National Napping Day isn't just like a random Twitter hashtag. It actually has a founder.
It does. It was created back in 1999 by a man named William Anthony, Ph.D. He was a professor at Boston University.
1999. So this was right at the peak of that dot-com hustle culture. It seems like a pretty bold move to suggest napping back then.
It was definitely countercultural. But his goal wasn't to encourage slacking off. The specific purpose of the holiday was to help people make up for the sleep loss during the time change.
Right.
Professor Anthony recognized that when we spring forward, we are violently disrupting our circadian rhythms. I mean, we aren't machines. You can't just delete an hour from our biological schedule and expect zero consequences.
It's funny you mentioned the whole why behind the time change, because one of the articles in our stack, specifically an opinion piece from MarketWatch, brought up a really interesting point about why we even have daylight saving time in the first place.
The farming myth?
Yes. I always thought it was for the farmers.
Everyone thinks that. But actually, farmers generally hate it. Cows don't care what time the clock on the wall says. They need to be milked when they need to be milked.
That makes total sense.
Right. So the primary argument has always actually been energy conservation.
Because more daylight in the evening means less electric light being used.
That was the theory. But the source calls this idea a complete myth. When you look at modern data, any energy you save on lighting is almost completely negated or even exceeded by the increased use of air conditioning and heating.
Wow. Yeah, if I'm home and awake an extra hour while it's sunny but hot out, I am absolutely cranking the AC.
Exactly. So we have this widespread policy that might not even save energy, but it definitely wrecks our sleep. And the biological reality of that is undeniable.
How bad is it really, though?
Well, the sources highlight that there is a statistical spike in heart attacks and workplace accidents on the Monday immediately after the time change.
You're kidding. A spike in heart attacks.
Yes. So National Napping Day isn't just a fun, quirky idea. It's essentially a public health intervention.
In a way, yeah. It's acknowledging that the body needs a reset because we've artificially messed with the clock. Okay, so we have the permission slip. We know why we should nap, especially right now. But here is where I think I need the most help. I've always thought I was exceptionally good at napping, But looking at this research, I think I've been doing it entirely wrong.
Most people do, honestly. They treat a nap like just falling asleep for a while until they naturally wake up. But there is a very strict science to the duration.
See, I always assume the longer the better. If I can get 2 solid hours on a Sunday afternoon, I feel like I'm winning at life. But the research here says that is actually a trap.
It is a massive trap. And to understand why, we have to look at what's actually happening in your brain. It's about sleep architecture.
Sleep architecture. Okay, break that down for us.
Sure. So when you sleep, you cycle through different stages. You have light sleep, you have deep sleep, which we call slow wave sleep, and then REM sleep.
Right, the dreaming phase.
Exactly. The length of your nap determines which stage you wake up from, and that stage determines how you feel for the rest of the day.
So let's look at the numbers the sources gave us. They talk about a sweet spot.
Right. If you want pure productivity and alertness, say you have a big meeting in an hour, you want to aim for 10 to 20 minutes.
10 to 20 minutes. That feels incredibly short. I feel like I'd just be getting comfortable, finally stopping my racing thoughts, and then the alarm goes off.
It does feel short, but physiologically it's doing something very specific.
Yeah.
In 20 minutes, you stay in stage 1 or stage 2 sleep. That's light sleep. You aren't entering the deep stuff yet.
Okay.
But you are clearing out adenosine.
Adenosine, what is that?
Think of adenosine like sleep pressure. It's a chemical that builds up in your brain the longer you are awake.
So it's the stuff making me feel heavy and tired.
Yes. A 20-minute nap is just enough to skim a little bit of that pressure off the top, giving you a quick reboot without shutting down the entire system.
So it's kind of like clearing the cache on your web browser.
Yeah.
You don't restart the whole computer. You just free up some RAM so things run faster.
That is a perfect analogy. You're just freeing up RAM.
Okay, so 10 to 20 minutes is the reboot. What happens if we go a little longer? The sources mention a 20 to 30-minute window, too.
If you push it to 30 minutes, you're still mostly safe. You'll likely wake up feeling energized. But once you cross that 30-minute line...
The danger zone.
Yes, you are heading into dangerous territory. The 60-minute nap.
The 60-minute nap is where things go wrong for a lot of people, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The sources were very specific about this. They used the medical term sleep inertia.
Sleep inertia. Here's what is happening there. By 60 minutes, your brain has likely entered slow wave sleep. This is deep, heavy, restorative sleep.
The serious maintenance mode.
Exactly. Your brain waves slow down, your core temperature drops, and your lymphatic system starts scrubbing out toxins. Your brain is effectively completely offline.
And my phone alarm goes off.
And you rip yourself out of that deep state. It's basically physiological violence. Your brain is confused. It's trying to figure out why it's being forced awake when it was right in the middle of a deep wash cycle.
That explains so much. Yeah. I have definitely taken those hour-long naps and woken up literally not knowing what year it is. Feeling groggy, confused, maybe even a little physically sick.
That's sleep inertia. It's like trying to start a manual car in 4th gear. The engine just stalls out. You might actually feel worse than you did before you took the nap.
So if we miss that 20-minute window, are we just doomed? Or do we have to commit to sleeping all afternoon?
Well, if you have the luxury of time, you can go for the full cycle. A full human sleep cycle is typically about 90 minutes. That takes you entirely through light sleep, into deep sleep, and then through REM sleep.
And then you cycle back up.
Right. If you wake up after a full 90-minute cycle, you're usually waking up from lighter sleep again, so you avoid that heavy inertia.
So it's either a quick 20-minute sprint or a full 90-minute marathon. But whatever you do, don't stop in the middle.
Precisely. Don't get off the train in the middle of the tunnel.
I love that. Don't get off in the tunnel. Now, let's talk about frequency. Because if a 20-minute nap is this incredible superpower, I assume I should be doing it every single day. I want to be a professional napper.
Yeah.
But the recommendation here is actually to nap just 2 to 3 days a week.
It seems counterintuitive at first, doesn't it? But this connects directly back to that adenosine, that sleep pressure we talked about earlier.
Because we actually need that pressure at night to fall asleep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you nap every single day, specifically for long periods, you are basically stinging sleep pressure from your nighttime sleep.
Oh.
You might find yourself staring at the ceiling at 11 p.m. wide awake because you burned off too much of that necessary chemical pressure at 2 p.m.
So the nap is a supplement, not a meal replacement.
That's the key takeaway. In fact, if you find yourself desperately needing to nap every single day just to function, the sources warn that this is often a red flag.
A red flag for what?
It can be a sign of improper sleep during the night, something like sleep apnea or another underlying health issue. A healthy, functioning sleep cycle means you should be getting enough restorative rest at night to power you through most of your normal days.
That's a really important distinction for you listening. Use the nap for the dips, like this post-daylight saving time fog, but don't rely on it to fix a chronically broken night of sleep.
Right. It's a tool, not a bandage.
Now, I want to pivot a bit because one thing I love about doing these deep dives is seeing how modern science so often just catches up with ancient wisdom. We treat napping today like this modern life hack or some Silicon Valley productivity tool. But historically, it was just life.
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the global traditions mentioned in our sources, the modern idea of just powering through the entire afternoon without a break is actually the weird anomaly. We are the strange ones in history.
We're talking about the siesta.
The Spanish siesta is the most famous example, of course, but it wasn't just Spain. The sources mention that the ancient Romans were famously known to take midday naps. And it wasn't because they were lazy. I mean, they built a massive empire.
Right, they were pretty busy paving the entire known world. So why did they nap?
Part of it was purely environmental. In the Mediterranean, it gets incredibly hot around 2 p.m. It makes no sense to burn energy working out in the midday sun.
Right.
But it also aligns perfectly with our biology. Human beings have a natural, hardwired dip in our circadian rhythm in the early afternoon.
The infamous post-lunch dip.
It's very real. Your body naturally wants to rest right then. The Industrial Revolution is what really changed all this. When we moved to factory schedules and artificial lighting, we started viewing sleep as time theft from production.
And now our modern perception often frames napping as a luxury.
Right. People say, oh, it must be nice to have time to nap.
Exactly. It's seen as a symbol of having extra time that most people simply can't afford. But the sources are basically telling us that fighting that biological dip is physically expensive.
It is incredibly expensive, and the health data thoroughly backs that up. We aren't just talking about feeling a little less grumpy in the afternoon. The sources actually call naps super healthy.
Let's get specific on that. What are the hard metrics they found?
The big one is heart health. The sources state that people who nap regularly significantly reduce their risk of heart disease.
That is a massive claim. How does lying down on the couch for 20 minutes actually protect my heart?
It's all about the stress response. Chronic stress keeps your cortisol levels high and your blood pressure up constantly. A nap acts as a cardiovascular reset.
Okay.
It lowers the resting heart rate and drops your blood pressure. It's essentially taking the heavy load off the engine for a little bit.
And the sources mention mood improvement specifically when midday fatigue hits.
Which is that 2 p.m. slump we all know intimately. Instead of reaching for a third cup of coffee, which, by the way, increases cortisol and puts even more strain on the heart, a 20-minute nap actively reduces that stress.
So it's literally better for your heart than an energy drink. Who knew?
Most cardiologists, probably.
Fair point. Fair point.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears here to something a bit different. We've talked biology, we've talked history, but one of our sources went into a completely different territory, the spiritual dimension of rest.
Yes. This was a really interesting addition to the research stack. It pulls from the Christian scriptures, specifically the book of Matthew, chapter 11, verses 28 and 29.
I have the text right here. It says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest."
It's a very famous passage, but what I found so fascinating for our particular discussion is how it defines rest. It's not just about closing your eyes and sleeping.
Right. It talks about taking on a yoke later in the passage, which to me actually sounds like work. A yoke is a heavy wooden farm tool for pulling loads.
It is, but think about the imagery being used. A yoke is traditionally designed for 2 oxen. If you are yoked to something or someone stronger than you, you aren't carrying the full weight yourself.
Oh, that's interesting. So the rest it's talking about isn't the total absence of a burden, it's sharing the burden.
Exactly. The text suggests that finding rest for the soul, which is a much deeper form of fatigue than just tired muscles, requires a shift in mindset. It mentions being meek and lowly in heart.
So humility.
I think it points to the idea that much of our deep exhaustion comes from trying to control everything, from trying to carry the weight of the entire world alone. The spiritual view of rest here is really about unburdening yourself mentally and emotionally.
That is profound.
Yeah.
Because you can sleep for 10 hours straight. But if your mind is still carrying the weight of the world, if you're still heavy laden, you're going to wake up exhausted.
Precisely. And that connects right back to the hard science we just talked about. Stress, anxiety, that heavy mental load, that is exactly what keeps us from entering restorative sleep. So whether you view it through a religious lens or a strict psychological one, The core truth is the same. True rest requires letting go.
I love that connection. So we have the physical reset of the 20-minute nap and the spiritual or mental reset of unburdening ourselves.
Both are completely necessary for a human being to function properly.
Okay, let's get highly practical for a minute, because I know there is a listener out there yelling at their speakers right now saying, I work at a busy office.
Yeah.
I can't just curl up under my desk at 2 p.m. Or, I have a toddler who thinks sleep is for the weak.
The can't nap scenario. It's very real and very common.
The sources gave us a bit of a toolkit for those exact people. If you simply cannot nap, what can you do instead?
Well, the most obvious one is you have to get more sleep at night. But the sources don't just leave it there. They suggest specific ways to actually make that happen. One that really stood out to me was taking a hot bath.
A hot bath before bed. Now, is that just because it feels nice and relaxing?
It does feel nice, but there is a very specific biological mechanism at work called thermoregulation. When you sit in a hot bath, your blood vessels dilate. That's called vasodilation. Blood rushes to the surface of your skin.
Okay, I'm following.
When you get out of the hot bath, that heat rapidly dissipates from your skin into the cooler air, and your core body temperature drops significantly.
Wow.
And that rapid drop in core temperature is actually the biological signal to your pineal gland to start releasing melatonin.
So you aren't warming yourself to sleep at all. You are actively cooling your core down to trick your brain into sleep mode.
Correct. It's essentially a biohack.
That's a brilliant tip. What are the people who try to nap during the day but just lay there staring at the ceiling? The tired but wired crowd?
This is where we look at alternatives like NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. Even if you don't actually fall asleep, just closing your eyes and removing sensory input allows the brain to recover somewhat.
So just zoning out totally counts.
It does.
Yeah.
But you have to actually zone out. The sources emphasize doing things like listening to calming music to help unwind. And this is the big one we all struggle with. You have to turn off the phone.
The ultimate distraction device.
You cannot find any kind of rest if you are constantly being stimulated by notifications. The blue light suppresses your melatonin, and the constant dopamine hits from scrolling keep your brain in active hunt mode. It entirely defeats the purpose of closing your eyes.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's also a reference in the source list to an article titled, When Babies Drop Naps.
Yes, from precious little sleep.
Which I think any parent recognizes as a distinct and truly terrifying phase of life.
But why is an article about toddlers in our research stack for adults?
I think the underlying principle there is universal. The article discusses how sleep needs visibly change as babies grow, but the fundamental need for rest remains constant.
Right, because when a toddler misses a nap, they don't just keep working calmly. They completely melt down. They fall apart. And honestly, look at adults who are chronically sleep deprived. We might not scream and throw ourselves on the floor of the supermarket usually, but we become highly irritable, our decision-making crashes, and our emotional regulation just vanishes.
We have internal tantrums.
We really do. As adults, we might drop naps because of work demands or societal pressure, but just like the baby who gets cranky without downtime, we still have that hardwired biological requirement for restoration. We just have to find different ways to get it if we can't physically nap.
So maybe we don't need a crib anymore, but we definitely still need the downtime.
We absolutely need the downtime.
So let's bring this all together. We've covered a lot of ground today, from Boston University professors to the chemical mechanism of adenosine, from ancient Roman habits to scripture.
It's a very broad topic.
If we had to distill this down for the listener who is maybe feeling that daylight saving time lag right now, what is the big takeaway from all these sources?
The big takeaway is reframing. We need to stop viewing the nap as a sign of weakness or laziness. It is a high-performance tool.
A tool for productivity.
And health. It connects directly to your heart health, your mood, and your brain's ability to process the world. Whether you spring forward or fall back, your body is a biological machine that requires routine maintenance.
And that 10 to 20-minute window is your best friend.
Absolutely. Aim for that sweet spot. Avoid the sleep inertia of the 1-hour nap at all costs.
I think what stands out most to me is that balance. We aren't telling you to go into hibernation. We're saying be intentional about your rest.
Intentionality is the key.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought that kind of stuck with me from the data.
What's that?
It's the paradox of the dosage.
Go on.
We spent this whole time saying rest is good. Rest heals us. It fixes our hearts and our minds. But the data also clearly says that too much rest at once makes you drowsy and sick feeling. And needing to nap every single day signals that something is actually wrong with your health.
That is a really fascinating contradiction.
It suggests that there is a very delicate balance between restoration and stagnation. Like, rest is a medicine, but the dosage matters immensely. If you take too much, it becomes a poison.
That's a brilliant way to put it.
So as you go about your National Napping Day or whatever day you're listening to this, ask yourself, are you resting to restore yourself, or are you just checking out? Find that sweet spot.
And turn off your phone.
And turn off your phone. Thanks for diving in with us today. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this day in His story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in His story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.